The T20 World Cup 2024 is just around the corner, as you can see in the screen as well. Just 3 days to go when Sri Lanka steps onto the field to play the T20 World Cup 2024 campaign. I have Viren with me all the way from the same country, Sri Lanka. Viren, you seem excited. Similarly, how do you look into the squad firstly, moving on to the T20 World Cup?
Thanks for having me once again, Pritham. It's an honor being back. Look, on paper, this goes down as one of our strongest outfits. As everyone knows, we've been plagued by injuries over the recent few months. At last year's T20 World Cup, we went in with a slightly depleted side. Speaking about the World Cup in India last year, we missed out on having Hasaranga in our squad due to injury. Yep. So yes, I think we can get into the nitty-gritties of the squad as we go on, but I think we have a well-oiled outfit that's been well led by Chris Silverwood over the past 2.5 years. A brilliant bowling attack, and I think the crux of our campaign or the success of our campaign will be determined by how our bowling attack comes through in the West Indies.
Definitely. Yeah, I absolutely agreed with that. The strength for Sri Lanka is no doubt their bowling attack. We'll come to that. But let's straight away look into the squad for the Sri Lankan side. Starting with the first four players, Viren, as you can see on the screen, you have Kushal Mendes, Pathum Nisaka, Charit Asalanka, your vice captain, and you have Dhananjay De Silva. Maybe what I see is that definitely these four are playing in your playing 11. If you can sum it up for me, please.
Yes, so our top order, we've always had issues with our top order in the recent past, especially in this format. So it will be important to see how Kushal Mendes and Pathum pair up at the top. They're both destructive batters. We've seen Pathum being the sole double centurion in ODIs for Sri Lanka. We saw Kushal Mendes at his best during the early stage of the 2023 World Cup, in that game against Pakistan and South Africa, for instance. So it's important for them to give us a solid foundation to work with early on. And then, so quite interestingly, depending on conditions and depending on the venue, I'm quite certain that Dhananjay De Silva will only be brought into the side if there is scope for a third/fourth spinner. And in my ideal 11, I'll have Kamindu Mendes batting at number 3, and someone like either Sadira or DDS at 4, and then Charit at 5. We'll get to my 11 later on. But yes, a lot will also depend on our vice captain, Charit Asalanka, one of our most consistent players in the format, a leader now, and just context for all our fans tuning in. Wanindu Hasaranga and Charit Asalanka, captain and vice captain, both hail from the same school. They both played in the same under-19 side for Sri Lanka. Charit Asalanka was actually Wanindu Hasaranga's captain. So there's a good rapport between the two of them.
Wow, that's a terrific insight you just gave. It's school friends now leading the way into the T20 World Cup 2024, representing their country. That's a fantastic start. Thank you so much, Viren. Now we move on to the next four. You had said a little bit of Sadira Samavikne. You can elaborate it. Angela Matthews, the veteran, is here once again in the T20 format. Dasun Shanaka. I think he has been missing since the Asia Cup when it comes to his lusty blows in the lower down the order. And come into Mendes. I want to hear a little bit of him as well. If you can sum up all the four players, please.
So Sadira for me is that anchor, and he's had a brilliant upturn in fortune. And just for context, he was left out of the Sri Lankan setup for 7 years before he made his comeback towards the end of 2022, and he's not turned back since. And I'd like to see him in that top 4 just as our anchor, because you need someone to bat out the innings. And both you and I agree that the pitchers in the USA are an unknown factor. We'll have to see how the tournament kind of wears on, and then especially since you need that one player, I think it'll be a toss-up, as I said earlier, between Sadira and DDS. And then you have your 2 experienced campaigners, Angelo and Dasun. Role fulfillment is key. In my ideal 11, I play the both of them because they also can be your 5th bowling option together. Angelo's hamstrings can go off at any moment, so it's important for us to have backup. But nothing can substitute experience. And it's important that both of them are in there. And Kamindu Mendes, for me, is going to be my X factor in this World Cup. For me, he's going to be your number 3, potentially one of our leading run scorers if we are to be successful. And also, as context for fans, he's one of the only cricketers around the world who's an ambidextrous bowler. So if you need him to bowl left-arm spin or right-arm spin, he's there as a spin bowling option as well.
So he can bowl with both hands?
Ball with both hands. He's done it before at all levels, from under 19 cricket, even in international cricket when he made his debut for Sri Lanka in the T20 format against England in Sri Lanka. He bowled with both hands during the same spell. So it'll be interesting to see how Wanindu uses him.
Wow, that's interesting. A player to watch out for already, I must tell you, Viren is coming to Mendes. That's Shanaka, you said. Samara Vikrama said. I just want to, before I move on to the next four players, I just want to hear a little bit of, you said Samara Vikrama. You previously said about Kushal Mendes. What's the reason behind keeping out the Sana Jayasuriya 2.0 of Kushal Perera out of the squad?
Very unfortunate. And I think it's unfortunate for both Kusal Pereira and even Bhanuka Rajapaksa, two of our most explosive batsmen. And on their day, they can take a game away from you. But unfortunately for Kusal, he had a bit of a barren run in the domestic T20 tournament just before the squad was announced. He's also not been declared fully fit yet for a consistent or prolonged period of time. He's had injury concerns. But a fun fact, the day after the squad was announced, he posted 74 of 27 in a domestic game. So just making his absence felt, but a huge blow for Sri Lanka. Let's go back to 2014, our World Cup winning campaign in 2014, and he was a linchpin at the top of the order. But yes, I think he was someone who missed out. If you don't mind me making a very bold claim here, in my 15, I would not have had Dunit Wellalage. I would have taken Bhanuka Rajapaksa instead, because you need that explosive presence in the top order. And Bhanuka has done it before, not only for Sri Lanka, but for Punjab as well.
Yeah. I see Sri Lanka more or less going with a bowling heavy side. We'll come to as we move on to the next couple of slides. But you said Samara Vikrama. He is somebody who came, who was not in the picture for 7 years. Has he played international before? I want to really know, because I heard a little bit of Samara Veera, Kapu Kedra, they were there. I'd be mixing a little bit of Samara Veera, Samara Vikrama.
So in Samara Vikrama in 2014, 2015 made his presence felt in the national team. But he wasn't the batter he is now. But when other players were getting long runs without being consistent, he was immediately sidelined due to reasons that go above my head. But
so in 2014, 2015 was Samara Veera there in the side?
Samara Veera was just fading off. And who can ever forget Samara Veera? That 3, 4, 5 of Sangakkara, Mahela, and Samara Veera goes down.
And then Kapu Kedra.
And then Kapu Kedra goes down in the history/archives as one of the most consistent middle orders. But Samara Vikrama was prolific in first-class cricket for 6 or 7 years until he got his call up towards the end of 2022. And he's been very consistent across formats for Sri Lanka since. And this will be an important World Cup for him. He's aging. He's not on the young side anymore. It's important for him to leave a mark. One of the most technically gifted batsmen that Sri Lanka has.
Okay, so you have summed up the 4 players now as well. Let's move on to the lower orders now. Starting with the captain, Wanindu Hasaranga. He's coming back from injury. I still say the way he used his ban coming out of retirement and saying that, I think kudos to him, to be very honest, for that. Then you have Dunit Wellalage. You said you don't want him part of the squad. We'll hear, because I think since the game against India in the Asia Cup, he's just been lost. He's not been nowhere to be seen. Then you have Mahistik Shana, a player, so much versatile skills he has been almost part of the Chennai Super Kings' success as well this season. Couldn't make it to the playoffs. And then you have Dushmantha Chamira. I'll come to the Pacers along with the Dushmantha Chamira, but if you can sum up the 3 spinners, please.
So speaking of Wanindu Hasaranga, the captain, and Wanindu Hasaranga, the bowler, the leading wicket taker in your last 2 World Cup campaigns, he's my pick to be the leading wicket taker this year as well. But Wanindu Hasaranga, the batsman, will be key for us. In the recent few T20s, we batted him at number 4, number 5, as a bit of an aggressor in that middle over phase. So immediately after the power play, you bring him into bat, and he's used to getting those quick 520s, 25s, which ups the ante, because we don't have, as I said earlier, we don't have big hitters in our top order. So it's important that Wanindu finds his zone as Wanindu the batsman. And this is something I've noticed about Wanindu. When he's performing well with the bat, he performs better with the ball. He's a bit of a confidence player. So yes, it's going to be crucial. He has his hands full when it comes to this World Cup. Mahesh Theekshana, yes, a lot can be said about him. One of our most experienced campaigners now in T20 cricket, applying his trade in South Africa and India with the Super Kings franchise for both Joburg and Chennai. Dushmantha Chamira, it's lovely seeing him in the squad. I hope he remains fit. That's been an issue with him over the past 2-3 years. He's missed out on several World Cup campaigns due to a lack of fitness. So I'd like to see him there as a linchpin. And then, Rhythm, you go to this trio. I'll be very honest, Sri Lanka has never had four better seamers going to represent Sri Lanka at
Absolutely.
any World Cup.
In a T20 format.
In the T20 format. We've always had Malinga, Chamindavas, etc., Nuwan Kulasekara, but never four exciting seamers in the same squad. And this will give
Absolutely.
us options to rest players during certain games, bring in our quicks when needed. Nuwan Tushara had a prolific end to the IPL campaign. I was surprised that he wasn't brought in a lot earlier by Mumbai Indians, but he's shown us what he can do with that hat trick against Bangladesh. Matisha Patirana, Chennai's stalwart, Chennai's kid now. Really keen to see how consistent he is with his lines and lengths. He was caught off guard a bit in the
Yeah.
50 over format, so it's important to see him strike through. And Dilshad Madhushankar, very excited by him. We've never had a left-arm seamer with his pace before in the Sri
What's
Lankan
his fitness
squad.
update?
Madhushankar's looking good. He bowled his full quarter of 4 overs in the warm-up game against Netherlands. Pritam, I don't want to talk about that warm-up game against Netherlands. But yes, Madhushankar and Tushar are both fit. Patiran is fit as well, even though he missed out the latter stages of the IPL. He's ready to go. So yeah, it's good to see four frontline seamers all fit and healthy ahead of the World Cup.
Four frontline seamers, all fit and healthy ahead of the World Cup, alongside the two versatile skilled spinners. You're running the Hasaranga Tikshana. Then he was saying about the seaming all-rounders. They can chip in a Shanaka and Matthews. How many options does Hasaranga need to bowl? Just 20 overs within his bowlers. We will see that. We're done with the squad. Thanks to Viren. Let's take a look into the fixtures for Sri Lanka in the World Cup. Yeah, the four teams they face. Match number 4, South Africa at New York. I think Team India, entire world will be ready on 8th of June, 6 a.m. Indian Standard Time to see Sri Lanka versus Bangladesh. I'm sure after India and Pakistan, this is the next El Clasico. I would want Viren to explain the reason behind that and how exciting is this to face somebody like a Bangladesh now as the fire is there and everything is iced, fired up, everything is on and on. Then you face Nepal and then you end your campaign against Netherlands, who you can say you've lost the warm-up game, but still you did not play a full-strength side. But I'll take that, to be very honest. What's your take on these 4 games? Is it? I've heard so many times. I've done this analysis of South Africa, Bangladesh, Netherlands, all the 3 guests. This is the group of death. Do you agree as well?
I think the group of death is the group that has New Zealand, Afghanistan, and West Indies together in the group. A tough group. We've never had a good track record against South Africa in World Cups, and the only time we've beaten them at a World Cup recently, we went on to win the World Cup. In 2014, we had our opening game against South Africa. If we win on the 3rd of June, Pritam, you can give me a buzz and I'll tell you that we're favourites to win the World Cup. But the tough thing about this, this will be a test for all teams. 4 different venues that we've not even seen much of, except St. Lucia, of course, when we go back to the West Indies. South Africa will be a tough game, but this is the good thing about predetermined seeds. Regardless of where we finish, we will always go into the next round as a second-place team. So that game against South Africa is a game that's important for us to not lose by a significant margin if we were to lose it. I'm quite confident that our bowlers can put up a good display, but I have a strange feeling net run rates will come into play here in this World Cup, especially with the weather concerns, etc. Speaking about the Bangladesh rivalry, I don't even want to call it a rivalry. Andrew Fidel Fernando on Cricinfo said it's the rivalry that world cricket doesn't need. We've always one-upped Bangladesh on the world stage, except in the 2023 World Cup after Angelo Matthews' timed out incident where we lost to Bangladesh. It's always been a friendly rivalry of sorts up until that particular juncture where...
But before that as well it was.
And even before that with the Nidahas Trophy, with the Nagin dance.
Exactly.
But Sri Lanka, with our rich cricketing pedigree, we won multiple World Cups, won Asia Cups. I don't want to throw shade at Bangladesh, but they can call us a rival once they have a few accolades under their belt as well. But that's going to be the big game, Pritam. With no disrespect to Nepal and Netherlands, that Bangladesh-Sri Lanka game might determine who goes through with South Africa through the Super 8s. Nepal is a tough side to face, but now without Sandeep Lamachane, I think we should be able to negotiate Nepal quite safely. And Netherlands, Pritam, a team to watch out for. They're missing big names again. They're missing players who are contracted by the first-class teams in England for the county championship, but never write them off. They gave us a scare in the 2023 World Cup qualifiers, gave us a scare in round 1 in the last World Cup. But don't forget, we're the side that also bundled them out for 38 and 39 also. So we have that to look out for. But our first two games will determine our fate in this World Cup. South
Okay,
Africa
so
and
you're
Bangladesh.
saying the first two games will determine the fate. You said about Netherlands, yes, they are missing Colin Ackermann, they're missing Rollo van der Marwe just because there's enough competition in the side. A team to watch out for. Viren said the group of New Zealand, West Indies is the group of death. But I still see this group is very, very tight because you cannot rule out Netherlands, you cannot rule out Sri Lanka. Four teams, not to respect once again Nepal, but four teams fighting for two spots. And that's going to be mouth-watering to watch. But we are done with the fixtures. Let's take a look into the last three times Sri Lanka stepped in the T20 World Cup. Where did they finish? It has not been ideal, to be very honest, Viren, when it comes to Sri Lanka in 2022, 2021, 2016, getting knocked out in the group stages. Do you think that this time you can make it to the Super 8 at least?
Pritham, I'm very confident that we will reach the Super 8s. I'm quietly optimistic as a dark. If our bowlers find their rhythm and if the conditions back them up, I will go put my head out there and say I'm quietly optimistic we can be dark horses for the semi-final as well. But
Okay.
looking back on our previous three World Cup campaigns, 2016 was very unfortunate. I think there's a tail end of our golden generation. Dilshan and Heyrat featured in the 2016 World Cup. We had just started a very prolonged period of transition. It was a dismal World Cup campaign. We had a close game against England. If that swung our way, who knows where we could have ended up. 2021 was unfortunate for them because if you recall that game against South Africa, that was a potential quarterfinal there, and David Miller needed 16 off the final over of Lahiru Kumara, and had that game gone our way, there was a lot on the cards in 2021. And 2022, again, we had injury issues early on. We played our initial games in Geelong, which didn't have the best outfields. A couple of our pacers got injured, but yes. As with Sri Lanka cricket, we always tend to show up at world events, at global events. No one expected us to win the Asia Cup 2 years ago. But I want us to discard the past three T20 World Cups. It's not been the best. But I'll tell you something, looking at our last three records, I think this particular squad is the strongest squad we've taken since 2014 for a T20 World Cup.
Okay, so you're constantly saying the same thing. You feel very confident. If not to the finals, though you may never know, cricket is a very funny game, but still you can definitely progress in the points table and up the ladder. We're done with this. Let's take a look into the top 5 players I've selected to watch out for. Here are the 5 players I've selected. Pathum Nisaka, Kushal Mendes, Wanindu Hasaranga, Mahesh Deekshit, Matisha Patirana are the 5 players. When you were speaking about the squad, I was tempted, where can I fit in a Cumming to Mendes? But I'll hand it over to you. Here are my 5 players. Agree, disagree? What are your replacements?
I agree. As much as our success at this World Cup will be determined by our bowling attack, our openers have to be prolific. Pathum and Kusal have to lay a solid foundation for our middle order to capitalize on. So yes, those two will be crucial. Wanindu, the captain, the bowler, the batter, everything put together will be quite crucial. Mahesh Deekshit, his spin wizard, his spin twin, will also be someone to watch out for. And then that 5th slot, yes, Matisha Patirana is crucial, but I'm also tempted to say Nuwan Tushar and Dilshan Madhushanka come into the fray as well. And if Dushmantha Chamira is fit, I'd like to see him featuring because he's the leader of the pack, the most experienced of the 4 seamers. But obviously, with Patirana's acclaim through the IPL, I think his presence will be felt. So yes, these will be my top 5, but I'm also tossing one other name in there, Pritam. Dasun Shannak, I want him to regain some form with the bat. Because Dasun Shannak, the batter, the finisher, can take the game away from the opposition. So it'll be interesting to see how he performs. So yes, as we've always been with Sri Lanka cricket, quietly optimistic. Yes, it tends to break our hearts when we don't perform well. But when 20 million hearts beat in unison, we can only hope.
Okay, you can only hope. You are confident, but you agree with my 5 players to watch out for. You brought a little bit of Shanaka, you brought a little bit of the 2 other pacers alongside of Patirana. Sums it pretty much up. Let's take a look into the leaders of the Sri Lankan side. As you said, the school friends are going to lead the team from the front. Talk us through a little bit of Chris Silverwood. How much has he changed the Sri Lankan cricket?
And I'm going to say this quite openly. When Silverwood came in to replace Mickey Arthur, everyone was critical of the appointment because of the thrashing England had in Australia, which was his last assignment as England coach. But people forget that Chris Silverwood had multiple roles with England. He was also the chief selector. He was bombarded with various assignments. But he's been absolutely brilliant as Sri Lankan head coach. We've had a string of brilliant performances. We've had our longest run of victories in ODI cricket under him. We won the Asia Cup in 2022 under him. Our Test cricket is looking very good. People will forget that we narrowly missed out on the World Test Championship final as well under his leadership. And I sincerely hope his contract is meant to end at the end of this World Cup, but I sincerely hope we prolong it for the next year or two, because he's been absolutely outstanding across all three formats. And I think, and one more thing I want to mention, and our viewers might not know this, but we've also had a change in terms of our selection committee. Upul Taranga and a few other former players are now in charge of our selection committee, and there's a lot more clarity in terms of messaging, in terms of selection, and people who miss out, which is important. We also have Aqib Javed, the Pakistan fast bowler, as our fast bowling coach for this World Cup. So him working with those four seamers is a tantalizing prospect. And I'm going to add one other name here, Pritham, as a potential leader, and that has to be Angelo Matthews. We've seen it behind the scenes. Angelo Matthews tends to call the shots sometimes on the field, and he has a very, very good rapport. Wanindu Hasaranga and Angelo Matthews are best friends off the field. So that's something to also add in there. So yes, it's a very cohesive leadership unit. We also have Tilina Kandambi, who is one of the most prolific coaches who led the Jaffna franchise in the LPL to 4 consecutive victories. He's also coached in the BPL, who is now Chris Silverwood's assistant coach. And we have Upul Chandana in the mix as well. So a very, very experienced think tank for Sri Lanka.
Wow, that's a very nice score. You are pretty much confident about the leadership as well. We're done with the leaderships. Let's take a look into the predictor playing 11. Here is my predicted playing 11. I'm expecting a lot of changes from your end, Viren, but let's take a look into this. Pathum Nissanka and Kushal Mendes are the openers. I think I've got this one only right. Sadira Samaravikram at number 3. Charit Asalanka, Dhananjay De Silva, Darshan Sanaka, Wanindu Hasaranga are my lower orders. Then I go to the only spinner, that is Matisha Tikshana, and the 3 versatile pacers. Here, am I playing 11? How many changes can you have? What are your playing 11?
Not too many changes. You've nailed it pretty much. But a couple of things in terms of combination. Mahesh, I'm not very comfortable with Mahesh Tikshana batting high up at number 8. And Pritham, this is also a debate we're having in Sri Lanka right now about changing our combination. The only change I make here, and it's a toss up for me between Sadira and Dhananjay for the number 5 spot, and I'll bring in Kamidu Mendes at number 3. But
so there's no Angelo as well here.
And I want, so this is a discussion we've had in Sri Lanka. It's going all over the media in terms of what our ideal combination is. I won't play all our 3 seamers. I will lengthen our batting order slightly and drop either one of Tushara or Madhushanka, depending on the situation, for Angelo Matthews, so that Tikshana comes into bat at number 9. I want to lengthen our batting order slightly because we know how erratic Wanindu Hasaranga can be with the bat as well. And I'm not too confident with just playing 6 solid batsmen in the side. So I'm bringing Angelo Matthews as cover. So maybe just for the sake of this 11, bring in Angelo Matthews in place of either Anwan Tushara or Dilshan Madhushanka, and just lengthen the batting order slightly so that Mahesh Tikshana comes into bat at number 9.
Okay, so you're a little bit going to a batting depth for the Sri Lankan side. Maybe one of the pacers out of the 3 in my screen has to make way for Angelo Matthews. The versatile Angelo Matthews, we all know. So that sums up the playing 11 for Viren. And that also concludes the squad analysis for Sri Lanka. It's time. Let's take a look into Viren's predictions for the top 4. Here it is, Viren. We'll come to yours. But before that, if you can see and look into it, 11, rather 12, if I'm not mistaken, guests have already predicted their squads. And I'll come to yours. You're rather 13th, I must tell you. Here is yours. Australia, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, West Indies. Before I ask you, I want to give you a banter. Where is Team India?
Okay, I knew that was the first question coming in. Let me break this down a bit. And I'm glad to see that another guest has said Sri Lanka earlier. I wanted to say Sri Lanka, but I couldn't. But kudos to that. It's nice to see that. I'll be honest, I'd love to see Sri Lanka there, but I didn't want to be biased in terms of my picks. I'll give you something for them. So, if all the expected sides are going through to the next round, Australia, New Zealand, India, and Sri Lanka will be in the same group. South Africa, West Indies, England will also be in the same group. For me, West Indies are peaking at the right time. Darren Sammy, the leader, the head of the think tank, knows how to win T20 World Cups. And on home
100%.
soil, West Indies go through in my books. And the other team from that group, before I come to the contentious group with India, South Africa for me, we know what that middle order can do, right?
Yeah,
And I'm pretty sure
surely.
you all the guests have spoken about it. So South Africa, West Indies argument. Coming to this group, Australia, New Zealand, India, Sri Lanka. I'm slightly concerned, Prithvi, and maybe we'll have this discussion and debate after the World Cup. By the length or the time span through which the IPL ran on, cutting short India's preparation times for conditions that many of us haven't seen or dealt with in the US, right? And with India being in that group with Australia and New Zealand, we see how prolific Australia are. They're a heavyweight side. My worry for India, and for me, it was between India and New Zealand for that spot. My only worry for India is their reliance on Bumrah with the ball as a pacer. But and I say this, I caveat this, if Kuldeep and Chahal can create a tandem and both their 8 overs economically and with a wicket taking ability, India will definitely be in my semi-final list. So that's my only caveat. If their spinners can come into the fray, that'd be great. The only reason I kept them out was player fatigue after the IPL.
Fitness,
There are
the
a couple of
tiredness.
rumors linked to dressing room antics between the likes of Rohit Sharma, Hardik Pandya, etc. We never know how that can trickle onto the field. Certain players being selected, Rishabh Pant, for instance, coming back into the Indian outfit after a long stay. If India plays to potential, both you and I know India are favourites to win the World Cup. But my worry is because of how prolonged the IPL was, player fatigue, etc., whether a fresh outfit like New Zealand might tip India in that group. But I would love to be proven wrong by India because whenever India are playing well, they're a prolific side.
Okay, so you are saying your 4-player teams, you have given your predictions, no India, but that's fair enough. That's absolutely the reason why we say predictions, and it's open to everybody. Now comes the leading run score and wicket takers. As you all can see, you're not just the only one. You can see Joseph has picked Vanindu Hasaranga as the leading wicket taker as well. Now we go on to yours, and you have said Quinton de Kock and Vanindu Hasaranga. Vanindu Hasaranga can be understood. Reason behind Quinton de Kock, please.
So for me, the leading run scorer will come from a side with a lot of batting prowess, but also be a top order batsman. So yes, I'm not surprised to see Virat, Travis Head, Josh Butler in the mix. So
Yeah.
those 3 names were the names I was thinking of. But why I went with a left field pick in Quinton de Kock? We know South Africa's firepower in the middle order. We've all said South Africa will have a successful World Cup campaign. Quinton de Kock has now matured to playing the role of that anchor, the batsman who can bat out 12 to 14
Yep.
overs. And
Yep.
if he does that consistently, we know that he can rack up numbers at a quick rate. So Quinton de Kock was my pick, purely based on my metrics
On
and
that
analysis
maturity.
on South
Okay.
Africa. And Vanindu Hasaranga, for me, he's done it twice before. I don't see why he can't do it for a third time. And I
And
say
on a
this,
surface where he will get more assistance.
exactly. And I'll say this, Pritham, if Vanindu Hasaranga doesn't end up amongst the top leading wicket takers, Sri Lanka will struggle at this World Cup. We rely a lot on him to deliver in the middle overs. So yes, I'm excited to see him in full throttle. But looking at the other names, I'll give you another left field pick for me. Kuldeep
Kuldeep Yadav?
Yadav will be
Absolutely.
my left field pick. It'll be either Kuldeep or Vanindu for me in terms of leading wicket taker.
Absolutely. I was waiting for a Kuldeep Yadav, to be honest, from your end. But okay, we are done with the leading run scorers, leading wicket takers as well. He has gone with the Sri Lankan and a South African as the 2 leading run score and wicket taker. But you will be surprised when you know who is the team he has picked for the T20 World Cup 2024 champion. It's the home side, and you all said the powerhouse of West Indies just clicking on the right time. Talk us through a little bit of them. The reason behind that they can be potentially taking the trophy back home. Is it the 12th man, the 12th house they have behind the scenes, their home crowd, or is it their batting unit?
There's something about the West Indies, Pritham. They're peaking at the right time. And with Darren Sammy, home conditions, they're used to playing in these conditions. For fans who aren't tuned to this, West Indies also play a lot of games in the US. They played quite a few games. Some of their first-class games are also played in the US. But that side is peaking at the right time, and they've got match winners aplenty. From the likes
Absolutely.
of Pooran, Hetmeyer, Rovman Powell, through to players like Andre Russell who are coming back into the mix. And that pace bowling attack led by Alzari Joseph is something to look out for. My only worry for the West Indies is their spin bowling department. A lot will depend on Akil Hussain. But if they come through, and this is a bold pick. I could have gone with Australia, I could have gone with India, I could have gone with South Africa, but this is a bold pick by a fellow islander from Sri Lanka. I think West Indies should go all the way, and if they do, it will be lovely to see, because West Indies being prolific in this format makes for good viewing.
Absolutely. It's the T20. It's absolutely West Indies format, to be very honest. Power it does every single place you look into in this site. We're done with this. It's time. Let's move on to the final segment, which is the trivia question we have for Viren in the T20 World Cup for Sri Lanka. Here's the only question we have for you. In the 2014 T20 World Cup final, which one you eventually won against us, who was the player of the match? Player of the
So
final,
you can't
rather.
do this. You can't end the episode taking us to the best moment in Sri Lankan World Cup history since 1996. It was a farewell game for both Mahela Jayawardene and Kumar Sangakkara. Kumar Sangakkara came into that game as someone who was always second fiddle to Mahela on the big stage. Mahela has scored centuries in World
Yep.
Cup semi-finals and finals, but quite fittingly, Kumar Sangakkara walked away with the Player of the Final award and was also acknowledged by Virat Kohli at the centre after reaching his half century.
Absolutely. So I did not have to give the options, ladies and gentlemen. His eyes was always on option number C. He knew the player, and absolutely, it's Kumar Sangakkara who was the player of the final. And as he said, Virat Kohli was the player of the series in that tournament. It concludes the show. Thank you so much, Viren. As always, it's wonderful having you part of the Sri Lankan squad analysis for the T20 World Cup 2024. In 30 seconds, if you can sum it up, how much did you like this?
Oh, this is going to be a very, very good World Cup campaign for all teams. It's nice to see 20 teams here, a lot of associate teams being given an opportunity to represent themselves, and that's what you need to see in a World Cup. Don't write Sri Lanka off, is what I say. If everything starts to click, if our middle order woes are fixed, we will be a team to watch out for. I'm going to be quietly optimistic and say, yes, the low expectation is to reach the Super 8s. And thereafter, as you said, it's T20 cricket, anything can happen on the day. But I want to give you credit, Pritham. This has been a brilliant series that you've done immediately after the IPL. I don't think too many people give you enough accolades for it. You were out there each and every day during the IPL, and to then start this series, absolutely outstanding. Looking forward to being on many more shows with you.
Thank you so much, Viren. It means a lot to me. Thank you so much to all the viewers for watching this video. It's Sri Lanka squad analysis done and dusted. Don't forget to subscribe to the Fifth Umpire. Press the bell icon as well. Till then, thank you so much, and bye-bye.
Thank you.